Introduction, that's for Miriam?
You are.
I will, okay. Good evening. Start off with the Chaim, a very special evening. L'chaim b'levracha. As usual, these shiurim are le'ilu nishmas Miriam Bas Ephraim Za'ev should have aliyas haneshama, and the best aliyah is yiridas haneshama lamata tchias amesim b'korev mamash. We're at a very, very special time now. The fact that it's Wednesday, entering Thursday, it's already considered Erev Shabbos of Chav Cheshvan, of the Yom Holedes of the Rebbe Rashab, and it's 160 years, which is very significant. When the Rebbe Rashab turned 120 years, that's 40 years ago, the Rebbe made a special Farbrengen and told us how we can connect with the Rebbe Rashab by learning his Chassidus. So what we're doing right now, we're learning the Rebbe Rashab's Chassidus. The Maimer, based on the pasuk Anochi Mugain Loch, that we started last week. We started 2 weeks ago, and this week we will continue, Mirz Hashem. Because there were some challenges with the transmission last week, so I'm just going to say over Bekitzer what we learned last week, and then continue from the new part. So just say over Bekitzer. I'm not going to read the words. Just going to say Bekitzer. The Rebbe asked the question, what is this? Scharcha harbe ma'od. What's a person invests to get a certain amount, a limited amount of profit. But harbe ma'od, like the Ikrim says, that means Eibush is going to give us bli gvul. How is it that Yidden can, by doing mitzvahs which are so gvul, how can they suddenly bring you a schar that's bli gvul? The gvul that Yidden do mitzvahs is connected to Zman. There are certain mitzvahs that are only by day, or certain times of the year. Then mitzvahs are connected only to Makim, certain places that we do it, like mitzvahs that have to do with Eretz Yisrael, Truma, Meiser. And then there are limits of how we do the mitzvah. The Asiyah itself is also very limited. The activity, how do we do the mitzvah? That the tefillin should be a certain size, the lulav and esrog should be only 4 kinds. So if everything is so limited, how is it that we earn bli gvul? Then the Rebbe went on to say about v'ahavta, the mitzvah of Avas Hashem, which is a bli gvul ahava, b'chol meidecha. You start off b'chol levavcha, that's as much as the heart can contain. B'chol nafshecha, it goes throughout your body. But it's all limited. B'chol meidecha means you're going more than your possibility, much more above your kaiches and above your hasaga. And that brings about b'chol meidecha ma'od shalamayla, the bli gvul v'lamayla. Because I'm going out of my gvul, Hashem gives us bli gvul. But, the Rebbe says, but isn't our bli gvul still in gvul? As much as we want to try to crawl out of our gvul and go bli gvul, it's still a human being. So to understand it, the Rebbe introduced two different kinds of ahava. There's one ahava that comes through his beinanus. When a person thinks about Hashem, thinks about the greatness of Hashem, so it brings him to ahava. That's ahava that comes through his beinanus. Then there's another level of ahava, which is not even through his beinanus. It becomes mitzad etzem haneshama. Is a gilui l'mayla, like a eis ratzon, like Rosh Hashanah says Meitshuva. It's such a gilui l'mayla, it's like a flash, and everyone gets decided. So the Rebbe says that ava that comes from Maila is a different kind of ava. When we're talking about different levels of b'chol meidecha of people, even your b'chol meidecha might be considered within limits to someone who's in a higher level than you. And even the ava that's bligvul, the ava that comes mulmaila, so the Rebbe says it in both ways, that everyone is really equal in that. But still we can say that someone above you, someone in a higher level, is still much higher. But in basically, we're all talking about something which is from a human being, which is the lashon mugbal be'etzem. And therefore, the schar should be, like the Ikrim asks, it should be zmani ukvuli, temporary, unlimited. Yet, Hashem does Rav Chesed. He gives us bli gvul. And then the Rebbe brought from Midrashim that Hashem said that he goes according to our koiches. He wants to follow Midah Keneged Midah. When I ask the Yidden for something, I'm only going to ask according to their koyach. But when Hashem gives, he gives lefi koychai, according to his limit. So Hashem gives us bli gvul. The biggest bli gvul that we can do doesn't come to the bli gvul shalamayla, but because we're going with our bli gvul, we're trying our best. So Hashem, like my father says, you do your best and Hashem will do the rest. That we do our capability of bli gvul, then Hashem will do his chidush of Lamaila from Hagbala bli gvul. He'll give us a schar bli gvul. And that's where we're up to now. On page 6, it's about a third into the page, by the word V'zeu shekasuv. V'zeu shekasuv l'cho Hashem chesed ki ata tishalim ish k'ma'aseu. You have chesed. The chesed is yours, Hashem. What is the kindness of Hashem? That He's paying us according to our maisim. So the Rebbe asked, well, what kind of chesed is that? When I work for my boss and he pays me, is he being kind to me? He's paying his chayv to me. He owes it to me. I worked. He might be a kind person if he gives me extra. But if he's paying me k'ma'asehu, according to my maisim, l'cha'era, me'achashet tishalem lefi ma'asehu. If Hashem is only paying according to the maisim, ma'u chesed. What is the chesed about? The chesed means you're not limiting, you're not gevura. So the Rebbe explains the chesed is the fact that he's going to give us bli gvul. But then it's not ma'asehu. So he's saying that the pshat is that if I do ma'asehu, I try to do on my part bli gvul, even though it's not really bli gvul, Hashem will give us bli gvul amiti, true bli gvul. So that's what the Rebbe continues now. hu bevligvul bechinas bligvul v'zeu hachesed chulu. The chesed of Hashem, that the payment will be bligvul. But on the other hand, we call Malkaim Hulefi Maseu. It still goes according to my work, which means the Bechtei Shiyumshach Bechinas Ma'eda Elyain, in order that I should be able to bring down Ma'eda Elyain Zeu Al Yedei Ava de Bechol Ma'idecha. I have to do my Ava in the way of Bechol Ma'idecha, beyond my limits. Even if it goes beyond my limits, it's still within the constraints of a human being, which is still Hagbala. You have to do what kind of hamshach you want to bring. You bring your best bligvul, and Hashem will bring his best bligvul. That's what happens through Ava, the B'chol Me'idecha. And that's Hashem's chesed. Let's say, yesterday I gave $100 to tzedakah, and today I added to that, and I gave 110. So whatever schar I got yesterday, I should get more today. But how much? Maybe 10% more. But the Rebbe is saying is because I went out of my regular limits. I went bligvul. So Hashem says, I'm giving him bligvul. I'm not going to count his limits. I'm not going according, I'm going bligvul. Because he went bligvul. Even though in his world it's all gvul, but he went above a step. He went the extra mile. Another thing that brings the oir bligvul, v'chein al yedei ha-mitzvahs, nimshach me'v'chinas, oir en sefer bligvul, also through mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, even though they're so limited, like we learned earlier, is man, makayim, the way we do it, mipnei shekein nitim ol ma'alachu. This is the way Hashem made from above. It's like a gezeda. Hashem made a gezeda. It's not in a way of cause and effect. Hashem said, you press this button, you're going to bring an explosion. Pushing one little button, you're going to bring down a gili oirein seif habligvul. Not because it deserves it. It's like a chayk. The Eibishter instituted such a reaction. You do a mitzvah, I'll give you a blimply sof. V'yesh b'mitzvahs gan kein chilukim. And in mitzvahs itself, there are different levels that they can bring down. Kamai, for example. Hayidei mitzvahs tefillin nimshach hagilu dein and soif ba'adalad meichin. There are two ways of counting the meichin shalamayla. Usually it's chachma bin adas, but sometimes we also include because it goes from there, becomes chesed and gevura, so it's called daled arba, 4 meichin. We're not going into it now. So through the mitzvah of tefillin, it brings down the Erein Seif in the daled meichin. In chachma bin adas chesed gevura of atzilus. Ukiyadua beinyan HaKadosh Baruch Hu meniach tefillin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chinas hakeser chulu. That what's the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu meniach tefillin, as we explained in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer, it brings down a certain Erein Seif in the level of keser. By the tzitzis nimshach b'chinas chachma comes down to the level of chachma chulu. By the tzedakah b'chinas chesed chulu. B'aynu sheyesh chilukim b'mitzvahs. There are differences in the mitzvahs. Me'ayin hi hamshacha u'beis madrega chulu. All the mitzvahs are from Hashem, and all of them are going to bring Erein Seif. But the Rebbe says there are differences where the Erein Seif, from which level it's coming from. But one thing they all have in common: v'hakoil mibechinas atzmas ein sof, bechinas bligvul ha'amiti. U'kumai, mitzvahs shayfer, sheidish hamshacha, mibechinas gvura is the atik. What comes down by shayfer? The hamshacha from the level of gvura in atik, which is in kesed. The sukkah, he bechinas chesed. Shezeh inyan anona da arin. He said before that tzedakah brings chesed. Now he's saying sukkah is also saying from chesed. That has to do with the anona da arin, the cloud of arin. I'm not sure, but I think what it's referring to from the anana k'teiris from Yom Kippurim that the Kohen Gadol does with the k'teiris, from that cloud of k'teiris, the smoke, that makes later it becomes nimshach in the sukkah. That's idea what surrounds us too, it covers us. The b'sharshon yesh leima hu b'chinas chesed da'atik. Just like we said before, the shefer brings gevura da'atik, but here sukkah is chesed da'atik. And then he goes, value. They are ava, the b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha. But if I only do ava, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, and I don't go to b'chol meidecha, all I can bring down is a limited amount of ayr. Because the Eibishter goes mida connected mida, like we said before. If I do b'chol meidecha, he'll give me the yois shezeo ava mugbelas, because b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha is still a ava with limits. Nimshech, it only brings down mebechinas halakus shabab agbala chulu. It only brings down a level of elikus that comes down in a limited measure. But umitzad hamitzvah bazeh hadizeh bebechinas bli gvul. The Rebbe is adding, nevertheless, b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha is also a mitzvah. And we said that the Eibush has set a rule. You press a button, it brings a reaction. Bli gvul. Avol mitzad ha'avoda. But mitzad ha'avoda of the person, how much is he doing? He's only doing with a hagbala. Hamshach bevechinas gvul. V'akshi yesh b'zeh gam ken bevechinas bli gvul mitzad ha'mitzvah. So there are two aspects here. When a person does a mitzvah, like loving Hashem b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, so mitzad one aspect, because he's doing it limited, he's not b'chol meidecha, he's going to bring down only a certain item. But together with that, he's also going to bring an obligable, because meanwhile he is doing a mitzvah, which is equal by all mitzvahs. And now the Rebbe concludes, and this is the chesed that Hashem is paying everyone k'ma'aseh hu. The emphasis here, it's like k'ma'aseh hu, the b'mida. Sh'adam meided ba, meidedin lai. The measure that a person measures, that's how Hashem is going to measure for him. Mikol malkain, nevertheless, even though we're going all according to a midah, so it should be limited. The Eibishter gives us chesed shaschar hu nitzchi ubli gvul. Now we have concluded one inyan. In certain Sifnei Maimarim, where this Maimer is brought, this is an end of a paragraph, and it starts a new paragraph. It seems like they were printed after this. So what we concluded from this part is that this is the chesed of Hashem that He gives us bli gvul. So then the question that the Ikrim asked is a little bit answered already, because the Eibishter, mitzad this chesed, he wants to give us mida connected mida. You're going to go bli gvul, he'll also go bli gvul, and that answers the question for now, that how come we do mitzvahs which are gvul and we get schar bli gvul? So that has been answered, apparently. Now the Rebbe is shifting over to the pasuk that the Mimer started off with. The Rebbe asked a question. It says, Anochi Mugain Loch, I am your shield. Scharcha harbe ma'od. And your schar is very great. And the Rebbe said, what's the connection between the two parts? Being a shield and giving you scharcha harbe ma'od. What's the connection? This is also what it said to Abraham. Scharcha harbe ma'od. Schar nitzchi. Your schar is very, very great with a schar nitzchi. That's the bleak wool that we're talking about. And why is it? Mipnei she'anochi Mugain Loch. It's not just two separate things in the pasuk. One is the cause to the other. Because Hashem is Mugain Loch, as he will soon explain, that's why he brings you bleak wool schar. And here the Rebbe begins explaining. Medrash Rabbi Medrash Rabbi on this pasuk. Hevi al zeh mashakasuv. He brought from a medrash. It says like this: Imras Hashem Tzerufa Mugain Loch Chaisimba. It's a pasuk in Tilim. What does it mean? Imras Hashem, the words of Hashem, the promises of Hashem, Tzrufa are pure. He will always carry it out. And he protects, he shields all those who seek protection in him. Now the Chachamim explain this pasuk. The word Tzrufa means pure. Could also mean purified. That Hashem's imrais, Hashem's commandments, purifies a person. A yid who's mekayim mitzvahs, it purifies him. Rav Amar, Rav says, why were the mitzvahs given? For the purpose to purify the briyos, the people. What makes you think so? To discipline the person, that the person should be a mensch. And he continues, because if you think about it, does the Eibishter really have to care if you're shechting the cow from the neck, in the front of the neck or the back of the neck? So why does Hashem give you specific ways to do it? He wants to see as mefolgen. We're doing what he's telling us. The ma'ich leila kadosh baruch hu im shecht min hatzavar. If he's shechting the cow from the front of the neck, or from the back of the neck. So we must declare that the purpose is not that it really makes a big difference to the Eibishter if you did azay or you did azay. The main thing is to purify the people. What does that mean? That when a person does mitzvahs, it brings out Kabbalah soil. It brings out his dedication to Hashem. And he becomes a person who feels responsible for his life on earth. I'm not just a behemoth. I have a purpose here. I'm sent here for a reason. And we have to work on ourselves. And that's what the pasuk is saying. Umashma, from this we can derive the tziruf, the mitzvahs, through the tziruf, the purification of the mitzvahs. Mugain l'chol achesim bay. That's what the pasuk said. Imros Hashem tzerufa. The commandments of Hashem make us tzerufa, make us pure. And what does the pasuk say after that? Mugain l'chol achesim bay. That means it's a cause and effect, that through the tziruf of the mitzvahs, Hashem becomes our protection. Now the Rebbe is going to bring a continue explaining about this purification. It's not only through mitzvahs, not only it means that, but he's going to continue on as we're going to see. Behine, in Yiltzarev. What is this purification we're talking about? Hu habirur v'zichuch. That is purification and cleaning out. Kitziruf hu shebarur v'zakuk hadavar. When you're saying, talking about tziruf, you're talking about something which is purified and clean. Like when they take silver and they melt it to get all the dirt out. That's the level of purity. Or gold. Sometimes you can have 18 karat gold, 24 karat gold. So that's what tziruf means, to purify. To purify whom? Mitzvahs are to purify the brias. Ubrias, Yedua, the koyal nifradim nifradim chulu. The brias we're talking about here is not about the malachim or the neshamas l'mayla. We're talking about the creatures down here on earth, the human beings. The fact that we find mitzvahs are enclosed in gashmistic objects. Tzitzis b'tzeme gashmi, tefillin b'klav gashmi. Make tzitzis out of wool, which is gashmis. Tefillin you make out of parchment, out of leather. What does it do? It purifies the wool and purifies the leather. It elevates it, it purifies it, so that they can be used as vehicles to bring elikus into the world, into those objects. Before the leather, before it's used for tefillin, is a plain piece of leather. You can make a belt, you can make a pair of shoes. Once you make tefillin out of it, the tefillin brings down through the mitzvah of tefillin, brings out kedusha. Ubifrat abiru the nefesh habamis. And here comes the main punchline, not just through the mitzvahs, to elevate the gashmistic things. What's about ourselves? The birur of our own nefesh habamis. Shenasa yidei mitzvahs. Our own animal soul becomes purified through doing the mitzvahs. Ukiyadua. The mitzvahs yeshlem sgula pratius. The mitzvahs have a special power in itself. Lekasha nefesh habamis la'oir ein seif chulu. Pasha, it connects our nefesh habamis to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just by doing mitzvahs b'chlal. And then there is the individual mitzvahs. Each mitzvah does another level of purification. Vegam hakfiya pratius. Kfiya means when you have to force yourself. You're bending the nefesh habamis, and forcing the nefesh habamis. Shebachol mitzvah, by each and every mitzvah, a different thing you have to do. And the Rebbe is going to use an example. It will be Yoiser. The kfiya is more noticeable than mitzvah tzedakah. Why by mitzvah of tzedakah? Because tzedakah, I can use the money to buy myself some pleasurable stuff in this world, some meiseres, to spend it on my own pleasures, and I'm giving away that extra money for tzedakah. So I'm subduing my nefesh habamis. Nefesh habamis wants to have a good ice cream, and I'm taking that money and giving it to tzedakah. Mishpat tzedakah b'yankov. What are the words mishpat, tzedakah, b'yankov? Is it mishpat? Mishpat is rules. Tzedakah is being charitable. What is a mishpat tzedakah b'yankov? Chulu? The Rebbe explains it's 2 stages. The first stage is mishpat. And then comes tzedakah. What kind of mishpat? I have to judge myself. Am I supposed to indulge in these meiseres, in this extra stuff? And once I realize that's not my avodah in this world, to pamper my nefesh habamis, so I'm going to end up with some extra money. Take that money and give it to tzedakah. That's mishpat to tzedakah. Tzarech is mishpat bit tzedakah. You have to have a judgment about the tzedakah. The ika mitzvah tzedakah, who the main thing of giving tzedakah is not, I pull out a nickel from my pocket. He should judge himself from all the permissible things and give that to tzedakah. Not the way my nefesh habamis wants. First, I'm going to make sure I have all my pampering from nefesh habamis, all the pleasures. Extra, whatever is left over, I have a few dollars left, I'll give it to tzedakah. No! We should deprive ourselves from the extra maisves. Then that money, yitem l'tzedakah. What is accomplished by this mitzvah? This gives us, it brings a purification in the midas tivim of the nefesh habamis. And basically speaking, more generally, the Rebbe says tzedakah keilelas kol mitzvahs. The inyan of tzedakah is really a shem klali for all the mitzvahs. So k'meshakasov u'tzedakah tiyalanu kinishmer es kol mitzvahs. That will be considered like tzedakah. In other words, tzedakah does not only mean giving money, but also doing mitzvahs is also a kind of tzedakah, probably because you're doing a tzedakah to the world. Chol ha-mitzvahs nase al yedei bira v'zichron nefesh habamis. All the mitzvahs that we do is caused through a person's making bira v'zichron nefesh habamis. He's purifying his nefesh habamis by yedei atzir of the mitzvahs hu bechinas mugain. That's what the pasuk is saying. Imras Hashem tzerufa, through the mitzvahs which make us tzerufa, purified. Ubechinas mugain, mugain hu l'chol achisim b'ay. So the Rebbe is building up a case here. That what's the idea of the mugain that Hashem is promising to Avram, telling Avram, Anochi Mugain Loch. What's the mugain? Through a person doing the mitzvahs, and it purifies him, makes him edel. That brings about the mugain. Then the Rebbe brings another medrash on the same pasuk. It's in the same medrash, but it's a continuation. Following the medrash that we brought, it continues on. Davar acher, another pshat. Imras Hashem tzrufa z'Avraham. What is Imras Hashem tzrufa z'Avraham? Avraham is the one who's tzrufa. Before we said it talks about every yid with his nefesh habamis. Now he's saying another pshat. It's referring to Avraham, who became purified. How? Shetzirfai b'chkivshon eish. Hashem purified him through the fiery furnace when he was thrown into the furnace by Nimrod. And what does it do? Mugain hu. It brings the next part of the pasuk that gives Avram the mugain, which is the pshat of the pasuk Anochi Mugain Loch. So how did Avram get the mugain for Hashem? Because he was in the fiery furnace. What's the connection? What's the connection between the two? So the Rebbe is not going to go off to another inyan in Gansen completely, talking about Kiyum HaMitzvahs of the Avos before Matan Torah. What did they accomplish? And how did they do it? Inyan hu dehine Kiyum Avram Avinu Alav Shalom is Kol HaTorah Achlei Nitna. Chazal say that Avraham Avinu fulfilled all the Torah even before it was given. Practically speaking, what does this mean? He put on tefillin, and it said over there in tefillin, the Parsha of Krishma, Asher Itzesi Eschem Eretz Mitzrayim, where the Yidden in Mitzrayim, Hashem took them out of Mitzrayim. There are so many mitzvahs in the Torah that we celebrate things that happened way after Avram passed away. That's the Rebbe is going to ask now. If you say Avram did all the mitzvahs before Matan Torah, why do you need Matan Torah for? The mitzvahs they didn't do it begashmias mamash, like we do it. Why do we say so? Shaharei adayin le'nitna Torah. Torah wasn't given yet. So there was no such thing as doing a mitzvahs b'peil mamash. V'gam kama mitzvahs shloi hoya adayin efshali yos. There's a mitzvah you couldn't even do if you wanted. The Harbi mitzvahs tlois b'tzias Mitzrayim. You can eat maror. You can eat matzahs on the night of Pesach. And it says in the parsha, matzahs afal vayechelu, and Rashi says it was Pesach. How could you do the mitzvah if there wasn't any mitzvahs Mitzrayim yet? They fulfilled the mitzvahs beruchnias. To a certain extent, they also used the gashmis of the world. They used physical matzahs, but they were mekayim the inyanim and ruchnias. Like it says in the Zohar, see, this brings it a lot. That mitzvah tefillin, how did Yaakov Avinu do it? Through the maklos. When he was peeling the maklos, the sticks, the rods, when he was working for Lavan, he peeled them and putting the maklos by the cattle, by the sheep and the goats and everything, and making his whole mices over there, so that they should be born with spots and stripes and everything. That was his way, beruchnias, of doing the mitzvah of tefillin. But there's a big but here, that after he finished doing his mitzvah, you could take those sticks and throw them in the garbage. They're totally kedusha-less. They did not receive any kedusha. Maybe b'shas ma'aser, but afterwards there's no kedusha in it at all. Why not? If I take a piece of leather and put it on tefillin today, it makes it holy. Not only b'shas ma'aser, afterwards, because of before Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, Hashem took off the mechitza, the partition between Elyonim and Tachtonim, and said that from now on, the kedusha of Elyonim can come down to the Tachtonim, to the Gashmias. Before that, there was two worlds. Shemayim Shemayim La Hashem, Ba'aretz Nasan L'bnei Adam. Two different things. Matan Torah accomplished the chidush that they mingled. That the kedusha comes down to the world, and the world is elevated to kedusha. That's why now tefillin has the kedusha. But then it was such a ruchnistic kind of fulfillment of the mitzvah that it didn't permeate and it didn't affect the gashmis in a lasting way. That's why he's saying that it was mikayim, there were mikayim the mitzvahs ruchnis. So just to sum up what we're up to here, we're talking about that what is this pasuk, Anochi Mugain Loch, Scharcha b'ma'od, what's this bleak vul of the schar, saying because a yid is going in his bleak vul, and that's all the Eibishter expects from the person, to do as much as bleak vul you can do. You don't have to go like with someone else. You don't have to do bleak vul that is someone higher than you is doing. Just do what your bleak vul is. Go out of your limits. And the Rebbe brought that that's the whole idea of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs purifies us. It purifies us to a level that it brings us that level of Mugain, as we're going to explain, Hashem, that through the tzrufa, that Yidden are purified, and every mitzvah purifies us more and more. The mitzvah of tefillin does that level of. I remember speaking to someone once about the accomplishment of Matan Torah, that Matan Torah made that tefillin should become holy. But before Matan Torah, the Zohar says that the maklos, they were tefillin, but it did not make them holy. They stayed plain maklos, plain sticks, nothing. And through that, Yaakov Avinu did tefillin. So the guy, I was on the phone with someone teaching him a shir. He says, Rabbi Goldstein, this doesn't make any sense to me. Maklos, sticks, tefillin? Come on. I know what tefillin are. But sticks, how can it be? I said, that's what the Zohar says. And then I said to him, listen to me. I want to ask you a question. You say, you know what tefillin are. I still, till today, cannot figure out how tefillin can bring the Gilui and Seif and the Dalet Meichin. What's tefillin? I said, is that any better than sticks? On the contrary, tefillin, leather, comes from a cow, from a calf, whatever. Sticks is more edel. It's tzemeach. True, it's on a lower level. It's demim tzemeach Chaim medaber. But you think that a piece of leather is more keli ve'elakus than a piece of wood. The same one who commanded that a piece of wood should act like tefillin can say a piece of leather becomes the vehicle for the Kedusha. We have to realize that when the Eibster gives us mitzvahs, it doesn't have to make sense to us how he's doing it. It's like we learned earlier. Shakach niten mulmaila. This is a thing that the Eibster gave us from above, that when we do a mitzvah, it brings a Kedusha into the world. It brings such a Kedusha that there is nothing else that can do it. We put on tefillin, take the lesson of tefillin. I once heard a gewaldige word. We talked about the 4 levels of meichin that get the Eirein Seif through putting on tefillin. It's very interesting to note. Tefillin has 2 parts, Shel Yad and Shel Rosh. The Shel Yad is 1 box, and there are 4 parshios on a long, long parchment that's rolled up like a Megillah and put into that 1 compartment. The Shel Rosh has 4 separate compartments, and each one has one of the 4 parshios folded up inside to fit in. We put on tefillin every day. What is it supposed to remind us? It's supposed to remind us that when it comes to seichel, when it comes to the seichel of a person, we may have all different opinions. You can have from one extreme of the spectrum to the other side. You can have 4 different parts when it comes to seichel. And that's where we put it on the head. What do we put on near the heart? 1. Because when it comes to midos, the feelings, we should all be like one. We should be unified. We're allowed to have a different opinion. You are allowed to have, because Ein the Yisem Shavos. The Rambam says, Kashem she'ein partzufeim Shavos. Just like our faces are shaped different, so are the minds, the way of thought of people different. We do not have to think alike. but we have to respect each other. We have to have our hearts ki-ish echad b'leiv echad. That's the true connection that we have, and this takes work. It takes work of subduing our nefesh habamis. There was a Maisa in Eretz Yisrael. There was a family that called a Rav, a Moyel, to make a bris. And they wanted him to come and be at a certain time, and they were worried because he's old, maybe he's going to come late. They kept on warning him, come on time, and it had to be on Shabbos. And they made up exactly how it's going to work. Part of the family was a little worried, and they wanted to have backup, just in case he doesn't show up. So they hired a young guy, a young male, nothing to be compared to this great, experienced male who have made mistama thousands of brisim. When it came Shabbos, and it came time to make the bris, the old guy showed up, the male, but he sees that there's a young guy standing there and preparing to do the bris. So he thought to himself, should I say something? They called another person. What's going on? And he stood there and he watched the guy do the bris, and it went through, Baruch Hashem, successful, and it was over. And then they both, the old moel and the young moel, walked away. They left the place. I don't remember if I'm telling the story 100% accurately, but this is the Nekuda. As they were walking, he sees that the old moel was so elated, was so happy, so excited, much more than the young moel. He asked him, why are you so happy? He says, I made a bris today like I never did in my whole life. I did thousands of brisim, but today I made a bris like I never did in my whole life. What do you mean? He said, today I made a bris on myself. You know, when a person can feel disappointed, I tried something and it was supposed to work out, and it didn't happen the way I thought, the way I planned. Hashem had a different plan. So we accept it, and we know this is from Hashem. What is the Rosh Tevis of Avram? Aleph Beis Reish Mem. One of the Rosh Tevisim, Rabbi's Machshavos Belev Ish. But what happens? Batzas Hashem Hisakum. What's he? Aleph Yud Kei Imyetza Hashem. I can have Rabbi's Machshavos. Is that what Hashem wants? And we have to know what Hashem is doing is only good and positive. And Hashem is in control and ruling this world every second and every person till the blade of grass. So there's no question that the Eibishter is not just watching, he's leading us step by step. Everything that we do is straight from Hashem. True, we have Bechira Chavshis, but whatever we are doing, whatever we end up doing, is straight from Hashem. The Rebbe says in a Sicha of Lech Lecha, in Lekutei Sichas Chelek Hey, Lech Lecha is the name of the whole parsha. So how come the parsha includes also a Yerida? Lech Lecha means a true going, not just going forward, Kadima. How can you say Vayered Avram Mitzrayma and all the suffering? How can you say that it's an Aliyah? I could call that Lech Lecha. It's part of Parshas Lech Lecha. Didn't get a different name. And also the Yerida that it caused in Avram. Like the Chachamim say, going down there eventually piled some kind of Yirida in Avram's level too. And the Rebbe says the lesson is that even a person has a Yirida, he should know it's part of Lech Lecha. It's part of his Lech Lecha in life. Hashem has a journey prepared for every single Yid, without exception. We think we are at the steering wheel. The truth is, it's the Eibishter. I don't remember if I told you this yet, but I'm going to say it again. The Rav came to Eretz Yisrael, got off the plane, got into the parking lot, and was looking for a ride to his hotel. And when he saw someone, he asked, "Can you go to this hotel for me?" He said, "Sure, I'm going to take you." He gets into the car and they start driving. And the Rav says to him, "So you give driving lessons, right?" He says, "What makes you think so?" "Because I see 2 steering wheels by the front seat. Only a driving lessons car has it." He says, "No, it has nothing to do with driving lessons. It has to do with my 6-year-old hyperactive child. I would take him for a ride. He would make me sugar. He would push the brakes. He would push the pedal. He would turn the steering wheel. I couldn't handle it anymore. It was mamash sakana. So I asked the mechanic to install a fake steering wheel so the kid can sit next to me and he'll turn the steering wheel however he wants. Let him think that he's running the show, but I know who's really in charge." The Rav says, "Wow, you just taught me such a great lesson in Hashgacha Pratis. Who's in charge? Who has the real steering wheel of a Yid? Do we have our own steering wheel? Not at all. Hashem does give us a fake steering wheel that we think that we're running the show. Because we have to do our part. But we have to remember that ultimately the true steering wheel and the real one is in Hashem's hands. And that's where we can be safe. If I have to run my steering wheel, how do I know I'm taking the right step? How do I know I'm making the right decision? If I'm on my own, chas v'shalom. But if I know that Hashem, no matter what I do, He's going to steer in the right direction, doesn't mean I should go hefker and do nothing and say He's doing it. No, let's do what's incumbent upon us to do al pi teva, but to remember that who's running the show, who's taking us on our journey, it's Hashem, who is with us, taking care of us, watching us, with us all the time, and controlling every single step. May Hashem mitzadei gever keinanu. It's from Hashem's hands. V'dar ko yechpatz. Not anyone else's derech. His will is going to be carried out. Everybody's wondering, who's going to win? This president, that president. Didn't we say in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hamamlich melachim v'loi hamalucha. He's the one that makes the kings, and He's the ruler. Even if He appoints malachim, but who has the rulership? Who's in charge? People are getting scared that maybe it's going to be this one, that one. Hashem. Melech malchem lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And v'leiv malachim v'sarim. The heart of kings and ministers are biyad Hashem. So let's not forget that. We think because this guy decided to do this for Israel, or this for this one, or this for Rubashkin, he had a choice in the matter. It's all from the Eibishter. It came the time that he had to go out of jail, and it happened. The Eibishter put it into his mind that it should happen. The Eibishter is running the show, and he is in charge, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be excellent. And we have trachten gut, not to think negative. As I said once before, negative is neged toiv. It's against everything that's good. Let's think positive. That'll bring us toiv amiti, toiv ligvul, especially. This is all part of setting the stage in this world for Mashiach. It's setting the stage. What the Eibishter has for props and for the scenery and the stage, that's his department. When people come to watch a play, you don't have to know all the details before. Just know there are people who are responsible in doing it. We're not talking about people, we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who created the world. He's setting the stage for Mashiach. Every step and every move and every day is closer to the Geula. Especially with this whole corona that happened, which shook up the entire world to prove one thing: who's in charge. If we thought we're in charge, if we thought medicine is in charge, doctors are in charge, it's a goodbye. There's only one in charge, the Eibishter. Like Taka, the president himself said that. Mask, no mask, he's in charge. We have to know that the Eibishter is in charge, and therefore I would like to take this opportunity to finish up with a few points. Number one, I want to thank everyone again for all the Tehillim you said for me, and for all the Yidden who need Tehillim, for my recovery in the past, and my recovery in the present, and the recovery for the next short while where I'm still recovering, because even though Baruch Hashem I got out of the woods, I still have rehabilitation I have to do and different steps I'm going through to get rid of all the residue from the COVID. And Baruch Hashem, it's going on the right path, and your Tehillim will be really appreciated. I also want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to host, to give this shir, which is for Miriam Bas Ephraim Ze'ev. And you should know, me and Ephraim would sit in 770 in the 70s. We learned together, we forbrang together. I'm very close with Ephraim for many, many, many years going back. And the Eibishter is going to bench Ephraim and his wife and the Kinderlach with Kol Tuv Nira V'Nigla. We should know that the Helen Behester, that which is now the stage that this world is in, is just an ayin be'emtza. It says there is yesh, and an ayin be'emtza. What's ayin? Ayin could mean from where, may ayin. The Rebbe Marash says also ayin can mean out of nowhere. When you take something and turn it into nothing, it's called making ayin out of yesh. The world was created yesh, may ayin. Whenever, Chassidus explains, whenever you want to make something really, really great, so the person has to go through an ayin, a time of absence, a time of vacuum. The world just went through a big ayin. Why? In order to get to a tremendous yesh, the real yesh, the yesh of Mashiach Tzidkenu, where we're going to see with our own eyes, B'Karev Mamish now, not only just to make America great again, but to make the world much, much greater than ever. And this will be with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'Karev Mamish, because this Shabbos is Chav Cheshvan, and it's 160 years of the Rebbe Rashab's birthday. Kedai that we should learn this Maimer on Shabbos if possible. The Rebbe says that's how we connect to the Rebbe Rashab. And a very interesting thing the Rebbe said by that Farbrengen, he says, let's learn how to become present. The Rebbe says people do not how to be present. They come to a Farbrengen, they're sitting, they're giving the time, they're being nice enough to show up, but only their goof is here. Where is their mind? Who knows where? In their business, from yesterday or tomorrow. So the Rebbe says, I suggest that every day, or at least once a week, to go into a room, close your eyes to make it easier, and meditate. Meditate on what? Meditate, number one, that you're by Har Sinai and you're getting the Torah from Hashem. Just picture it, but really try to put yourself there. The Rebbe says, just like by the Yidden, by Matan Torah, they began to sweat, you will feel a sweat. And number two, the Rebbe says, meditate that you're standing near the Baal Yom HaOledes. Just picture that in your mind. And the Baal Shem Tov says, "B'makim shemachshavti shel adam shamu nimtza." You can be there. So imagine that we could connect. We're connecting tonight with the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe says by learning his Maimer, we connect with him, and we have the Rebbe Rashab. What else can we ask for than such a schus that we have with us a Yom Zakai, a special Maimer that we're learning that the Rebbe handed us. The Rebbe also gave us Eitz Chaim that year, Tavshin Aleph, a few days earlier. And the Tavshin Memches, he gave us a Choltzu. A Kolpan, we learned the Maimer, we try to internalize it, and take a vart from the Maimer. We don't have to study the whole thing by heart. I heard that the whole idea of Chassidus is not to amass more and more knowledge as much as taking one line and meditating on it, whatever it may be here, and to think about it, internalize it, and bring it to Maise Bepoil Mamash. And we're going to be Zeicha, the Taka, before Chav Cheshvan arrives, we'll already have the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, Mashiach Tzidkenu, and we'll see an end to this whole Corona, an end to the Galus, an end to everything. It's like the last flickering of the flame of Galus, and we'll have the Geula Shlema, Amen, B'Karev Mamash. Zayt alle gesund.